I'm Mark James. Welcome to another edition of the Hornet Spotlight. It's time to induct another member into the Beech Grove Hall of Fame. It continues to grow each and every year, and the list of inductees becomes oh so very impressive. Certainly the case this time around, a graduate from 1998, Viral Patel. Congratulations. Welcome to the Beech Grove Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you live in New York City, and we'll get into the resume and the bio, but you were telling me that even though you live in New York City, you get back to central Indiana quite a bit.
I mean, it's still home. My family still lives, half a mile from here. So we come back quite a bit for Colts games and just see the family. So probably come back on average at least once a month.
Well, 1998 graduate of Beech Grove High School. Talk a little bit about what life was like for you in the hallways of Beech Grove in those days. I mean, if I can use that term.
Honestly, it didn't look very different than it did today. I just walked in. I haven't been here in years, and it looks the exact same. The hallways look the same. The people look about the same. Maybe a lot younger appearing. And it's surprising to see how young people look now compared to 10 years ago. I don't think I'm that old, but it's amazing when you come back.
I worked at a small school in a rural community, Monrovia, which is west of Indianapolis, and grew up there. And one of the things that amazed me when I first came to Beech Grove is how very similar it is from the standpoint that you have a lot of teachers on staff who went to Beech Grove. You have a lot of students here now whose parents went to Beech Grove. And even though it's within that 465 ribbon, if you will, did it have the small town feel in 1998 where everybody knew everybody, seemingly the way it still does today?
I think so. I mean, my graduating class was 144 kids, so it's pretty easy to get to know everyone in your graduating class. And the school, I think, as a whole, was only 700-something kids at the time. So compared to my friends that went to giant high schools where it's 3,000 to 4,000 people, it's very small town feel. It pretty much knew everyone in your class and most of the people in the school itself. So.
Were you academically driven, or were there extracurricular activities? If there were, what were you involved in?
I played football, and I also ran track, and then obviously a lot of academics as well. Great teachers here. So
let's talk about some of the clubs and organizations you were involved in outside of track and football in terms of ECA, any of those academic related.
So I did a lot of the science stuff with Mr. Banks and the Science Olympiad, and there's also the brain game. So more of the science, I guess, clubs where I was involved in, and also the TV production class was a lot of fun at the time.
Well, you talk about science, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at it or not, but I don't know if you're aware, we have a wing devoted totally to science. So that's a pretty ambitious undertaking here at Beech Grove, and we'll talk more about the importance of that in just a minute. Okay, you left Beech Grove in 1998, and you went to Vanderbilt University, one of my favorite cities in Nashville, Tennessee. Talk a little bit about what drove you to Vanderbilt.
So I'll be honest, when I applied there, I had never been to Vanderbilt before. I just kind of picked a bunch of schools that I thought were good schools and would seem like a good fit. And at the time, websites weren't exactly that big on schools, so I actually had to just go visit all the 3 schools I picked out, and it just seemed to fit. I walked on the campus, I met some of the people, that within 10 minutes I knew that's where I wanted to go. And it was the best decision I made. Well,
that's one of the most culturally diverse cities, I think, in the country, and a lot of folks, I think, are under the opinion that it's all focused just upon country music because it's the birthplace of country music, but it is an exciting, vibrant city, and that campus, I think, doesn't get the credit it deserves for the quality of education that it offers. Okay, biomedical engineering. For those that don't know, what is that?
So it's mostly focused on production of devices used in the medical field. So MRIs to CAT scanners to even simple things like IVs. So anything that you see or use in a hospital and medical situation, you design of that equipment.
Was there something that drew you to that very early on in your freshman year, your sophomore year, or had you made up your mind before you left Beech Grove that that's the direction that you were going?
I'd kind of made up my mind before, and that's the direction I was going, partially because I enjoyed science, and I also like building things, so that was kind of a combination of theoretical science and actually being able to apply things.
Now, after you received your bachelor's degree from Vanderbilt, you went back and got your master's degree, and then where did we land first as we started our career?
So I first did research in Bethesda, Maryland, at the Naval Medical Center with the Army. Did some neuroscience research and like, neurocancer research for a couple of years. And then after that, I decided to apply to med school, and I went to med school in San Antonio.
A lot of options out there in terms of med school. What took you to San Antonio?
I got in.
Well, that's short and sweet and to the point. And how long were we in San Antonio?
Just 4 years for med school.
Yeah.
With the 1 year stint I spent really close to the border. They did this optional program where I was 10 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border, which was an interesting experience. Very small town, mostly Spanish-speaking, in the middle of nowhere. So,
how? I guess you hear a lot of stories. You don't ever get the opportunity to talk to someone in specific details. Excuse me. But let's talk a little bit about that process in going to med school. Is there anything that you do and you did at Vanderbilt through your master's or your bachelor's degree that adequately prepared you for just how difficult that process would be in going to med school?
Obviously, I think anything you do, any sort of education, it gives you a set of skills and tools to be good at whatever you decide to do next, but I don't think there's anything that really adequately prepares you for medical school. It's a lot of information. The human body is very complicated, and basically everyone that shows up is in the same boat. It's like drinking, water from a fire hose.
Sleep deprivation an issue while you're going to med school?
I'm a good sleeper, so that wasn't too bad.
Okay, very good. Let's talk a little bit about your residency.
Their sleep deprivation was a bit of an issue. It was a lot of fun. So I moved from San Antonio. I wanted to, family is really big for us, and my brother was living in New York at the time, so I wanted to move to New York. Did residency in New York, and it was, however hard I thought medical school was, it was about 10 times harder. Mm-hmm. A lot of information and a lot of responsibility finally that you're actually taking care of people and you're responsible for them. So
from there you went on to a fellowship in 13, 14?
Yeah, so right after I finished residency, I stayed at my same hospital and did a fellowship in medical simulation. For those that don't know, basically we use simulator machines to help educate residents and medical students on how to take care of very sick cases and very complicated cases. That way they can practice before they go in the real scenario, mm-hmm. and hopefully theoretically deliver better care when they're in that scenario.
Well, as we mentioned, New York City is home for you. Now you're faculty at the Albert Einstein School of Medicine. So what are your primary responsibilities there?
So I still work in the ER taking care of patients about half the time, and the other half of the time I teach medical students, emergency medicine residents, and then also teach some of the nurses and physician's assistants on using the medical simulators.
So do we have enough time to compare and contrast the difference between life in downtown Beech Grove and life in the Bronx where you now live?
Well, I actually live in Manhattan, but okay. I do work in the Bronx. Okay. No, we don't have enough time for that.
Well, obviously you still have very strong family ties. It's great that you come back to Beech Grove on a regular basis. As we mentioned, we developed this science academy. Education at the high school level has become a bit more specialized, and we're proud of what we've done here at Beech Grove. We give students the opportunity when they get to their freshman year to kind of have an idea of what career path that they want to take, and our Science Academy is a part of that. So what sort of advice for someone who thinks that they might want to consider a career in medicine, what should they be focused on beginning with their freshman or sophomore year?
I think obviously the science should focus on, but I think it's important to not forget the other fields as well. So instead of just doing science, maybe also take some business classes, take some English classes that you may not take to really be a well-rounded person. And
I would imagine that you have to be disciplined enough. You talk about your experience as an athlete in track and your experience as an athlete in football, and we know that those are very competitive environments. If medicine is the route that you choose to take, you need to prepare yourself to be able to compete just as mightily academically.
I would say that's accurate, yeah.
Well, congratulations to you. We appreciate your time. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Our latest inductee into the Beech Grove Hall of Fame. I'm Mark James. Our thanks to Assistant Principal Randy Clevenger for securing the interview. Production assistance provided by Wiley Kraft. I'm Mark James. So long for now.